back. Now we're going to do a tutorial on drawing and animating a bird. So go ahead and click on Action Script 3 and make sure you're in the animator mode for the workspace. And let's change the size here from 100% to fit in window. Make sure that we're pretty much centered here and we know where everything is. And then let's choose the oval tool, and over here in the properties panel let's change the stroke to 3 pixels in width. Okay, that's a nice canary yellow color. If yours is white, go ahead and click on that chip and choose this canary yellow. And what I'm going to do is show you how to draw a graphic and then convert it to a symbol, because in order to animate something the way we want to, it has to be converted to a symbol and then it's housed in the library. So let's start by drawing out what's going to become the body. So hold down the Shift key and the Option key and let's draw it out a little bit. And let's press the V key, and we're going to give this bird kind of a pear shape, a little bit round in the bottom and maybe a little bit narrower in the neck. So you can do it whichever way you want. Remember, you can also go into the sub-selection tool, press A and click on there, and you can adjust it any way you want, like that, if you want to get a little more symmetrical, and then back into the selection tool. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that for now. And notice we're in scene 1. We want to now convert this to a symbol so it'll be housed in our library, and then we can bring out as many instances as we want, or we can add other things to it. So select the whole thing by drawing a selection box around it, or you can double click on it and select, make sure that the dot matrix is also in the stroke so that you've got the whole thing selected. Now you can right click on it and go down to convert to symbol, or the shortcut is F8, or you can go into modify, convert to symbol here. Different ways of doing things. And let's call this body, B-O-D-Y. And make sure it's a graphic. We also have the choice of the button or the movie clip, but we're going to leave it as a graphic. And we'll leave the registration that's centered here and click OK. Now you can see that along with the thumbnail in the library, we have body as a graphic. And the way we're going to be doing this animated bird is we're going to create it in the nesting modes. And so we're not going to be bringing anything out into scene 1 until after we've got the bird created entirely. But first, before we do that, let's save this file. File, Save As, and I'm navigating to my desktop, and I'm going to create a new folder to save this in. I'm going to call it Flying Bird. Then I'll name this file itself flying_bird-1, because we're going to do several iterations of this. As I said, we want to do this all in the nesting mode. We're going to create the bird and the animations all nested, and we're not going to bring them out into the stage in scene 1. So since we have our body already created, just select that, and you'll see it's got the blue bounding box. That means that it's selected. And there's, in order to go into the edit mode, you double click on that and then you're in the edit mode. You can see body. But we're going to take this and delete it. But we're going to take this instance of that graphic and delete it from the scene, because we're, like I said, we're going to do all our work in the nesting mode of the graphics in the library. So now we have the body, and again, double click on that and we go into the edit mode, and there it is. And you can see that dot matrix on the entire graphic, and that means it's editable. So you can edit it if we want. But we're not going to do anything else with that now. So next, let's go back into the library and let's go down here and click on New Symbol. So instead of creating this new symbol in the Scene 1 stage, which is now empty, we're going to create the symbols in the library and leave them in the library and work on them in the library in the nested mode. So let's create the head. Click OK or Enter. And now we're in head in the edit mode. So we can create a head, and let's use the oval tool like we did before. So click on the oval tool. Hold down the Shift and Option key and drag out a head. And let's just give this a little bit of a contour so it's not perfectly round. More of an oval shape for the head. And you can see it's already a symbol there because we created it inside the library. And actually, I'm going to leave this side a little bit rounder, and we'll assume that it's looking off to the right, to its right and screen left when we actually finish creating it and animating it. So let's leave that, and let's create another symbol. Let's call this eyes. And let's create some eyes. So let's use the oval tool. And the eyes we want to be white. So let's start here. Hold down the Shift key and the Option key and draw out an eye. Now, rather than drawing another eye, let's copy and paste that one. So select it, copy, Command C and Command V for paste, and let's put them in proximity with each other. I'm going to put them right about like that so they're very close to each other. So we got that. Let's create another symbol. Let's call this the pupils. Now with the pupils, let's go to the oval tool. We don't need a stroke on those. Just deactivate that and let's create the fill just black. And about the same location, and we'll adjust them for putting over the eyes. So we got one here. And let's select it, copy and paste, put the other one over here approximately where it would be on the eyes, which are actually what would be the sclera, which is the technical term for the white of the eye or the eyeball. Now at this point I want to go a slightly different direction, and we're going to start putting these together onto another symbol, and that'll be the whole bird. So new symbol, whole bird, and click on the timeline tab, and we're going to, on this whole bird symbol, we're going to start adding the layers of the different parts of the bird. So in the first layer, let's call this body, and let's create another layer and another and another. Let's call this head. Let's call this one eyes, and call this one pupils. Now the order that I'm doing this isn't necessarily the order that you need to do everything. I'm just trying to show you different angles and different workflows for your pipeline. So let's go with the body first and lock these others. You can lock and unlock by clicking and dragging, or you can click on the top icon to get them all at the same time, and then you can unlock one by clicking on it. So we'll start off with the body. Now you can see we've got about 8 seconds of time on the timeline. It's easier to select and work with the different frames. Each of these represent a frame. And let's go to the slider and let's zoom in on it. so that we can more easily see and control what we're doing on the timeline. Go ahead down to Library, and you can see they're alphabetically ordered. Just click on the body icon and drag it out to the center. There it is. And that's good. Let's lock that and then unlock the head and select that layer. And then click on the head and let's drag that out, and that'll be somewhat overlapping the body. Put it where you're comfortable. And then let's lock that layer. Go to the eyes and unlock it. And let's drag an instance of the eyes out. Now you can see that's a little bit big, so let's zoom in a little bit. You can do that with the shortcut Command+. And now we need to scale that down. So the shortcut for scaling it up or down is press the Q key. And you see you have a free transform tool there. So if you want it to transform uniformly, hold down the Shift key and that'll force it to go in a uniform way. And let's move it over to this way. Like I said, we're going to have it like it's looking to the side a little bit and even bugging out a little bit from the side. So that's pretty good for now. Let's lock that, and then let's go to the pupils, unlock that, and then let's drag the pupils out. And same thing here. We can hold down the Shift key and move them into position with the arrow if we want, or click and drag it into whatever position we want. And there you go. And remember, that was the Q key on your keyboard, and then back to V to just give us the select tool. And then let's lock that pupils layer. Let's add a couple more layers. And let's name this layer Beak. Let's name this layer Wings. Let's add another one, and let's name it Legs. And just lock the legs and the wing and select the beak layer. So let's create a beak now for him. And so we go back to the library, create a new symbol. Let's name it Beak. Now another way we can draw these graphics is by going into the edit mode for the whole bird, okay? And we'll be creating the symbol and then making sure that it's in the beak area. I want this beak to be orange in color. Let's go to the tools and let's try a new tool, a Polystar Tool. Click on that. With the Polystar Tool, you can create stars, multi-pointed stars, and you can choose how many points you want, and you can also create polygons. So let's go to the Properties panel and take a look at the properties that we have. We want to add a stroke color, get back to black, and then the color for the beak will be kind of a bright orange. We'll leave the stroke at the same size. With the Polystar, we have the options here. The tool settings. Go to there, click on options, and you'll see in the tool settings dialog box that you have the choice of either a polygon or a star. So let's start off with a polygon, since that's the default, to keep it simple. And number of sides, if yours says 3, then change it to 5, and we'll play around with that. And star point size is 0.5 is fine. And just click over here and drag it out. And that's what we're going to start off. We're going to make a beak out of that. So who knew? All right, so press the V key for select and go to this point and just pull it back. And you can see it's getting to be kind of like the shape of a beak. We'll leave the top part a little bit bigger than the bottom part. Let's go back to the timeline. Double click on it and let's pull it in to the face. Now we can give him a little smile maybe. Just put a little curve there. Maybe a little curve there too. And that's good. Maybe have this come up a little bit, have a little bit of curve down like that. But you can do it any way you want, whatever kind of makes you feel good about it. And that pretty much finishes up our beak for now. Let's go ahead and lock that. We can adjust it a little bit more later on if we decide we want to. Now let's move on and create the legs with the feet. So select that layer, unlock it, and we're going to use the Polystar tool again. And let's make those legs and feet the same color as the beak. So the tool we want again is the Polystar tool. And you can see we still have those colors, so we'll use that. And we can change the options. This time let's use the star. We can use either the polygon or the star. Either one works. Just for the sake of doing something different, let's make it 6 sides to the star. Okay, and this what I'm doing is scrolling up and down to position it. Another way you can do it, shortcut, is to press H for hand and move it around in any direction in two-dimensional space. So we'll move it up. Again, we want to use our Polystar tool. So let's go back to the timeline so we can see that. And let's draw it out. So we're going to use some of these for the feet and some for parts for the legs. Let's start off with making the leg. Press the V key and let's bring it up like that and narrow it down a little bit. And just, you can draw along with me or do it at your own pace. I'm going to bring these in a little bit closer. And put a little contour onto these. This will be the back spur. We're not going to make it like a duck. It's going to be more like a flying bird. I think that's a pretty good leg right there. So let's give a little bit more curve to these claws and bring them down a little bit more. They're set pretty much like they would be if they were perching. And double click on it and let's bring it over and put it into position. And let's rotate it a little bit. Press Q, and that gives us our free transform. I also should show you where you go to get it under the menu. You go to modify and then down to transform, and then you have these different choices. But free transform is very versatile, and so I use that a lot. And we can rotate it a little bit if we want it to go more straight down and put it into at least a rough position to where we want it. Now we still haven't made this into a symbol, so we need to do that. So right click on it, convert to symbol, And let's call that leg underscore right. And now it's there in the library. Now, rather than draw another one, we can just copy and paste this one and create another symbol for the leg left. So Command C, Command V, and let's flip it. So press Q, and then let's just click and drag from the side and give a sort of a mirror image, not perfectly symmetrical, but we'll put that there. But we want this left leg symbol to be separate in the library, so let's cut it from there. Command X to cut it. Let's go down into the library, create a new symbol. Let's call it leg underscore left. And let's paste that. But hold down the Shift Command V and it'll paste it in place. And now you can see it there's in the library. Let's go back to the whole bird, double click on it, and let's draw that out as an instance. And we'll leave it in the legs layer, but it'll be a separate graphic. So click on it in the library and drag it out into the stage. And make sure and save often, Command S. Alright, so let's lock off the legs, and now let's unlock the wings and select that layer. And we're going to create some wings. So click on the new symbol, and let's do like what we did with the legs. We'll create the wings separately. So start off with wing underscore left, and let's create a wing. But let's do it on the whole bird. So let's use the oval tool. Make sure you have the stage selected and press O. And the color, for the color we want that yellow again. So click on the chip, and this time we're going to use the eyedropper, which shows up automatically when we mouse over the object. And you can see the chip changed now to yellow, and that way it'll match the body. So let's click and drag out an oval, and we can shape this any way we want. Press the V, select, and we'll give this kind of a wing shape, almost like an airplane. That's looking pretty good. Let's put it into position right about there. We're going to cut and paste this into the symbol in the library. So let's create a new symbol, and that'll be wing right. Then go back to the whole bird. Again, the order I'm doing this in is kind of random, so you can just follow along, but you can choose your own way of doing this. So this is going to be our wing right. Make sure you have it selected, and Command X, and then double click on wing right, and then Shift Command Paste, so it pastes it in place. Okay, and then we're going to create the left wing from there. I kind of did it out of order, but it works anyway. So we want to copy this and then paste it into the wing left symbol in the library. So Command C, and then go to wing left, and Shift Command V. And if you get this resolve library conflict, That's only because I had already created the wing left and it thinks it has something in it. So just replace existing items and click OK, and there it is. Now we're going to need to place that in the proper place and reverse it. So click on it and hold down the Shift key so it maintains the size, and there it is. Now we're going to create a new symbol and we're going to animate those wings inside that symbol. So go down here into the library, create a new symbol, and that'll be wings underscore flapping. Now we'll need 2 layers for this because we're going to do a motion tween, and a motion tween, you can only have 1 motion tween per layer. So each of these layers will have a wing on it. We'll call layer 1 wing left, and layer 2 we'll rename as wing underscore right. So let's drag the right wing into the stage and then select the left wing layer and put the left wing into that layer. And we're not talking politics here. This is totally devoid of politics. And get those about the same height so they're somewhat symmetrical. We need to have time designated for their flapping. We're set at 24 frames per second, so in the timeline, let's have these flap twice per second. So go to frame 12, click and drag, and we're going to add an empty frame there, so press F5. You can also do that by going into Insert, Timeline, and then Add Frame. So click on wing right and go to the first frame and right click on Create Motion Tween, and then go back to the first frame, and we're going to set this wing at the extreme, at one extreme. That'll be the flap down. Press Q for your free transform, then click on and drag this pivot point over to where the shoulder would be. And again, make sure you're on the first frame and then rotate that down. So that'll be our starting point and the point we'll return to at the end of that cycle. All right, then go to frame 6 and we'll go to the other extreme. And you can see with a motion tween, it automatically adds the keyframe at that point. It extrapolates it. Maybe we want to move it just a little bit more up. And then we can go to the last frame and rotate it back down. And you notice that I'm getting this rotation icon when I get to the around the corner. I mouse around the corner and get that rotation. Okay, so now we have a full cycle of the flapping. So we're just kind of eyeballing the positions of the wing. We can click back on the first frame and see that it moves just a little bit. So we might want to move this back to get a little bit closer to where it ends up. But we can always tweak that later. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the left wing. So right click anywhere in the middle of that layer and then create motion tween and go to the first frame like we did with the other one. Now we could have created both motion tweens at the same time if we shift and selected both layers at the same time, but then we just still have to animate them separately. So you have free transform on the left wing, click and drag that pivot point up to the shoulder area. I'm going to move it over a little bit. And then we're at the first frame, so we want it to match the other wing. So drag it down to the lower extreme, go to the 6th frame, and you can see here, if you look right here, you can see that we're on the 6th frame. That shows you the current frame where you're at. So you can see as I scrub through. So we can go back to the 6th frame and then rotate it up to the other extreme, the top extreme, and then go to frame 12 and rotate it back down to the other extreme at the bottom to match the other one. And now you can see as we scrub through, we have a full cycle with both wings flapping. So let's lock both of those. Click and drag to make the locks. And then let's go back to the whole bird. And you can see we don't have any wings there, but we do have these wings flapping. And so we can drag those into there. But first let's check and see if they do flap. And you can go up here into the thumbnail, and it's got this little play button when you get an animation. And you can click on that and it'll play one time through the cycle. All right, we can see that works. That wasn't necessary, but it was something I wanted you to be aware of. And click and drag the wings flapping into the stage there. And again, remember we're in the whole bird edit mode. And that looks pretty good, but we may not want to have it in the front of the body. We may want to have them in the back of the body. So we can simply click on that layer and drag it down behind the body, and that kind of is more appealing looking. You don't have those black lines from the stroke. And now that we have the wings in there, we need to add time to our whole bird symbol so that it will animate. And just like we did with the wings, we're going to add time in the timeline for this animation of the whole bird. So click and drag from top to bottom, and then press F5 to add a frame. And now you can see we scrub through this and we have the whole bird with the wings flapping.